Good evening. Well, good to see you. It's kind of fun to look around and see people's faces. So if you haven't been over here when we're in the middle of a retreat and you think, wow, this place is very quiet. Well, that's true. And when we're on retreat, we're quiet. We don't generally look around. We don't have tea, so normally we have tea. Sorry, no treats tonight. Usually during the talks we don't have Q&A, so I'm just going to talk and then bow and then say goodnight, and we'll reset, and the people in retreat will do one more sitting. And so just glad you're here, and if you're in retreat and you're like, that sounds great, one more sitting, where's my pillow now? Maybe you're already thinking about your pillow. So I'm just remembering one time I had doing a mindfulness training at a conference for entrepreneurs, and they gave me a 3-hour slot in the evening. And I thought, this is going to be tough. People are going to be sleepy and they just want to go to the bar. And then after we started, I found out that many of them had flown in from Asia that morning. So you can't possibly be that tired. So, however you are, I'm glad you're here. I gotta say a little something for the people in retreat, because we've been here together. We're not talking. I don't think I've been able to say anything to you yet. So I love you. I'm glad we're doing this. I think what you're doing is beautiful, and I'm really grateful to be included in it. It's pretty simple, we just come in a house and take care of each other, hopefully in a way that is actually nice. Which for me, was really a joy when I came to Zen practice. Like, we just come here, we feed each other, we give each other food, we clean things for each other. It's very sweet, and I appreciate it. You're doing good. That's what I think. That's my impression. So I'm seeing some friends here in the online. Hola, bienvenidos. Good to see you all. Hey, Chris, I've seen you. I know you're doing this retreat. We have one person who's a very devoted online participant. So we've been talking. We usually have a theme for Rohatsu Sesshin, which is the retreat that we're in right now, which celebrates the enlightenment of the Buddha. And our theme this time is a little essay by Dogen Zenji, the founder of Soto Zen, which is called the Bodhisattva's 4 Methods of Guidance. So this is like how bodhisattvas guide beings to enlightenment through giving, kind speech, beneficial action, and identity action. So I'm already doing it wrong because I'm just going to talk. Well, maybe I'll do kind speech, and I'll give it to you. I'll try and give you this kind speech, and you can do whatever you want with it. So yeah, these 4 methods of guidance: giving, kind speech, beneficial action, and identity action. And we're just working through the text in order, so I'm going to be focusing on the second half of the section on giving right now. And giving, as some of you know, is the first of the paramitas, which is the 6 paramitas, or the 10 in some cases, are the basic way of describing the path of liberation in Mahayana Buddhism. So we have the Eightfold Path in early texts, and then we get the 6 paramitas. And giving is first. So I'm going to read the whole section that I'm going to be talking about. This is Dogen, so if this is just completely like, wow, hard to understand, that is to be expected. So that's why I'm going to give a talk about it. So don't worry about it if it doesn't make a lot of sense. That's okay. It's just sounds. Maybe I'll just listen to the furnace. No, we're gonna listen to Dogen. A king gave his beard as medicine to cure his retainer's disease. A child offered sand to Buddha and became King Ashoka in a later birth. He was like an incredibly influential Buddhist king. Neither was greedy for reward, but only shared what they could. To launch a boat or build a bridge is an act of giving. If you study giving closely, you see that to accept a body and to give up the body are both giving. Making a living and producing things can be nothing other than giving. To leave flowers to the wind, to leave birds to the seasons are also acts of giving. King Ashoka was able to offer enough food for hundreds of monks with half a mango. People who practice giving should understand that King Ashoka thus proved the greatness of giving. Not only should you make an effort to give, but also be mindful of every opportunity to give. You are born into this present life because of the merit of giving in the past. Buddha said, if you are to practice giving to yourself, how much more so to your parents, spouse, and children? Therefore, you should know that to give to yourself is a part of giving. To give to your family is also giving. Even when you give a particle of dust, you should rejoice in your own act, because you correctly transmit the merit of all Buddhas, and for the first time practice an act of a bodhisattva. The mind of a sentient being is difficult to change. And how? You should keep on changing the minds of sentient beings from the first moment that they have one particle to the moment that they attain the way. This should be started by giving. For this reason, giving is the first of the 6 paramitas. Mind is beyond measure. Things given are beyond measure. Moreover, in giving, mind transforms the gift, and the gift transforms the mind. So, seems like lately I can't stop talking about joyful mind, which is one of the 3 types of mind that Dogen exhorts practitioners in the kitchen to cultivate. Kind mind, joyful mind, great mind. And the reason I like talking about this is because I think being joyful is fun, 1. And 2, because he says, you should cultivate joyful mind. And I'm like, oh, that sounds good. I want some of that. And then he says, why should you be joyful? Because you can serve people food. So thank you for your joyful mind, Tenzo, who've been feeding us, and all the other people who've been serving us food. But joyful not because you get something, but joyful because you can give. And in the metaphorical context of that teaching on the cook in the kitchen, he's saying, the reason we should be joyful is right now we can offer something. He talks at length about the meagerness of the things we can offer sometimes. Have you ever been sitting in meditation and thought, my offering is meager? I can barely pay attention. Actually, I'm not even paying attention. I'm just resenting someone. And here I am supposed to be meditating all beautifully, or whatever it is, or regretting, or seeing your mind attacking yourself with recrimination. You think this is so meager. And yet, that's a moment where we can practice. We can look at that meagerness and say, this is still an opportunity. I'm alive. To be a sentient being is to be someone with a capacity to make an offering. In the 10 stages sutra, the Dashabhumika Sutra, which is a section of the Avatamsaka Sutra, also known as the flower garland. The first of the 10 stages is the stage of joy. And when you start reading about the stage of joy, it's all about giving. Giving. This is not really the way I'm conditioned to think I'm going to get some joy. I'm going to get something I want, or things are going to go my way. I'm going to accomplish something. But no. Just to know that you can give, and then just give. I can't read my own handwriting. This is a gift to my family because it enables them to make fun of me a lot. Oh yeah. So joyful mind. So we can cultivate the joy of giving. So like when we have meals during the session, the morning and lunch, as many of you know at this point, is very formal. And someone comes up, and there's like the most visible evidence that someone is serving you could possibly imagine, because there's someone watching you eat the entire time to see how well they can serve you. And you know they're there. This is a tradition that wants us to see the inescapability of giving and receiving. And serving it's kind of strenuous. So like if you count it up, you'd be like, all right, I got down on my knees to serve someone 30 times this morning at breakfast. Not that I've ever counted. It's probably more than 30. So I can remember we used to have, this room wasn't here, so our zendo was across the hall, and we'd stand, when we were serving, the servers would be standing against the wall waiting for the next thing to serve. So we'd go in, serve all the food. It's pretty strenuous. Then you come in, you just stand there while people eat for like 5 or 10 minutes. And I can remember being there and just being like, God damn it, this is stupid. Like, why am I why don't I have a snack, or I could read a magazine or something? It's just like, this is so dumb. I can also remember standing in that same place, serving the same function, and being overwhelmed with a kind of joyfulness and peace that I have rarely in my entire life encountered, knowing that I had the opportunity to serve food to these people that I love in this beautiful way, where there was no waiting. I didn't have to wait for anything to happen because I was just there. Don't wait for liberation, people. I have a whole page of notes, and I'm right here. So we'll see how far we get today. I'll start talking really fast later. This is kind of what happens during sessions, so seems to be the thing. So the thing is, those are things that occurred in the container, in the context of practice. I put my body in the container of Soto Zen practice, and my life was transformed. My experience of standing in that hall while people were eating was transformed. But it's also true that Dogen is like, you might want to try and call up some joyful mind. It would be okay. So you might be like, no, my practice is just bare awareness. Well, you could also have some joyful bare awareness. Why not? And I can remember, I worked as a bike messenger for many years. And I remember one day I was out and it was like snowing heavily. It was very cold. And it's kind of hard to ride a bike in heavy snow and traffic. Imagine that. So, I'm just plowing through it. I was a big old grumper. And my buddy Andy, who still rides, he's like my age, he's still messengering. Wow. And he's just into it. He takes pictures. I was messengering. He comes up on me and we're like at a light. And he's like, hey. And I'm like, He's like, this is amazing. What a cool challenge to ride in the snow. I mean, people pay to go skiing, and we're getting paid right now. Riding in the snow was never the same again. The way we think about things matters. A clear mind that sees things without any obscuration is beyond measure, as Dogen says in this text. But sometimes we just need a little encouragement to see how beautiful it can be. So there's a nice little section in here, or a little phrase or something. Let's see. If you study giving closely, you see that to accept a body and to give up the body are both giving. If you study giving closely, you see that to accept a body and to give up the body are both giving. So, by the way, in case you haven't picked up on it, what the heck does giving even mean here? How can you give your body? What would that be? Exactly. I could tell you, maybe, does this ring true? Have you ever been like, this crummy old thing? You know, you look in the mirror, or maybe you're just like sitting there and you're like, you know, I don't really accept the body at that point. You know, that's not an acceptance. That's a judgment. It's like someone gives you a gift. So to be able to say, this is the one I got right now. Like now, it's never the same body. I mean, we can do like our cool, like the cells replace each other or whatever. Just actually experience it. Tell me, can you ever locate any length of time in which your body experience is identical to any other moment? I don't think so. It's always an utterly unique momentary manifestation, just as experienced. And we can see this as like, what did I get here? You know, like, when I look out at the sunset, it's not that hard for me. Oh, I'm being given a sunset. That's nice. Right? I accept it. I don't usually realize it's like, oh, this body. We got one of these again. How many times is that going to happen? I don't know. We'll see if I wake up tomorrow. I hope so, because I would like to come hang out with y'all this tomorrow morning. And to give the body. You can't really give the body if you can't accept it. Dogen Zenji says, drop off the body. Kedu says, drop off the body. The river of the world will never end. It's not getting rid of something. When you drop off your kids at grandma's house, or you're like, see you later. This is the dropping off of the body that Dogen invites us to do, to entrust the body to the world. Say, here's my effort. Well, normally I'm not really like that. I'm like, I made my effort, so what am I getting out of this? Where's my pleasure or my accomplishment or whatever it is? I just make my effort, just give it back away. It's possible. It's possible. So, in case you're not picking up on it, it's kind of like a feeling. We're talking about an attitude. That's why Dogen ends this section by saying, mind is beyond measure. Giving transforms the mind, mind transforms giving. Buddhism is not a materialist tradition. The impact of the quality of our intention is what creates the world we live in from the Buddhist perspective. And you might say, well, but what about, atoms and all that stuff? That's all good. I like atoms. The reason for focusing on intentionality is because it reminds us that we have power, that what we do matters. So we can focus our energies on what actually creates well-being, instead of focusing our energies on trying to manipulate apparently external objects, hoping that somehow that will work out for us. That wasn't on here. Here's another cool thing Dogen's talking about in here. Right after that section on the body, it says, making a living and producing things can be nothing other than giving. Making a living and producing things can be nothing other than giving. Well, I can tell you it hasn't always felt like giving to me. It has felt like giving sometimes. I really had to quit my job as a waiter and a bartender when I realized I just saw people walk in the door and I thought, how much money are you going to give me? And I thought, this is just a terrible way to live. It was painful. It was a sad and painful way to live. And that was not always the truth. At one time I went in and I was like, this is beautiful. We're making theater. We're giving people food. Oh, serving people food. I still love serving people food. So, making a living and producing things, he says, you can't not be giving. Well, that's just a shift. This made me think of something. Well, and what I'll say just practically speaking is like, can you recognize when you're working and producing things that you're giving? What will that do to the way you do that work? I don't know. But it reminds me of a story that Rosemary, who's one of the priests here, has told a few times that I really liked. She was like, kind of, she knew a lot of people had like really cool jobs and like, helping people. And she was really kind of getting down because she's like, my job, I work at this job and I do payroll for a big company that's mission is not something I care about at all, or something. I'm sorry, Rosemary, if I'm getting this wrong. But anyway, it's just like this, just feeling like there's no meaning here, what's going on? And one of her colleagues was like, do you think that the people who work here want to get paid? Because you make that happen. That's important. Well, it's like my friend riding up on a bicycle and being like, wow, can you see the inescapable mutuality? So we talk about giving the body, receiving the body, making a living and producing things. And then the next sentence says, to leave flowers to the wind, to leave birds to the seasons are also acts of giving. Well, that's not very hard. I was sweeping the sidewalks today for work practice, and it was no problem. The wind was gonna do what it was, I'm like, I've got my broom, okay, if we go over here, and they'd be like, no, actually, we're gonna go over here. Oh, it's like a little dance. Dancing with the leaves. To leave flowers to the wind, to leave birds to the seasons are also acts of giving. So one, we can't escape it. We're in a situation where there's just so much happening. But to see it to see that just doing nothing is an act of giving. Let's let both days that we went walking in the morning here for our outdoor mindfulness walk, it was really cold. That was a good accept a body, receive, give away a body. They were like, I'm cold. And I was like, oh, my body's really cold. And it changed. I was like, what's this like? I was like, oh, I'm just gonna walk. This is my practice. And that was great, super invigorating. Went from this, go back cold. And then I got distracted from what I was gonna say. So to leave the bird, so we got a bald eagle. Oh, you can just, I don't have to mess with you. You can just be part of the whole thing. I don't have to name you. And ducks in the water. I'm like, wow, I think I'm cold. That looks really cold. Just letting them be there in this whole field of experience. So, we don't often relate to the things of the natural world in this way. I saw a bunch of people like run by. They might have seen the ducks and the eagle, I don't know, but they didn't really look like they did. Which is no knock on them, but it's kind of like it's easy to see the world through the lens of utility. What's in it for me? Which is not very giving. So I lead these wilderness retreats, and I was on one with this woman named Jampa, who's she's since not a nun anymore, but she was a nun in Tibetan tradition for many years. And we were on this retreat, and there were a lot of bugs. There were tons of bugs. But the nice thing is they weren't bitey bugs, but they were just like swarmy, buzzy bugs. And they loved Jampa. She was beloved. So we'd all sit zazen like by this lake, and you could just look over. She was like Pigpen, cartoon. Other cool thing is, a couple times it was a hummingbird. It was came and hung out with her. But so the bug loved her. And we have a little check-in at the end of the day. It's a silent retreat with a check-in at the end of the day. So I was just thinking about what are these bugs? I wonder what they're getting out of this. I wonder, they like my head. She wasn't like, why are these stupid bugs bugging me? I'm trying to meditate over here. She's like, I wonder what are they up to? What's this interest, this openness? So let's see, this is fun. Anybody here read the book Braiding Sweetgrass? Oh yeah, it's so good. So good. Okay, so it's real good. It is by a woman named Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she is a Potawatomi botanist and biologist. So she's like trained in Western science, but then very immersed in traditional Potawatomi plant relationship. And Potawatomi, I think, is close relatives to the Anishinaabe people who are indigenous to this area. So the book is great, and it's really about seeing both our inherent mutuality with plants, but seeing how it's actually possible, and people have and do have very healthy symbiotic relationships with plants. And one of the big themes is she teaches like at a university, and she's like, it's super depressing because almost all of her students think that humans are inevitably extractive and harmful to the natural world. They're just like, this is the way it is. And it's like, no, just come outside and I'll teach you some Potawatomi folk ways. And you can see that what we're doing not only benefits us, but benefits those plants measurably. Giving and receiving. And I like this little quote. Paying attention is a form of reciprocity with the living world, receiving the gifts with open eyes and an open heart. Well, that sounds like that could come right in the middle of this passage on giving by Dogen Zenji. Us, attention, leaving the birds to the wind. The flowers to the sun. Ooh, I didn't even make a note of this, but I would like to read it. Therefore, you should know that to give to yourself is a part of giving. Wow. I thought I was supposed to be a bodhisattva and climb a volcano and jump in for all beings, which actually does happen in the Avatamsaka Sutra. It's pretty cool. And the great thing that happens when Sudana does that, he's like, okay, the bodhisattva said I have to just climb to the top of this horrifying mountain and jump into the pit of flame. He's like, I'm not sure this is a good idea. Really, it's great. And then he's falling in, and as he's falling into the fire, he says, oh, how pleasant these flames feel. Okay, well, that was a bit of a tangent. But there's an opportunity for our joyfulness, an immediate relationship anywhere. Anywhere. But to give to yourself is also giving. I can't, I'm not going to spend a lot of time unpacking this, but I'm just going to say the definition of selfishness in early Buddhism is things that are harmful. Because there isn't a self. So the thing is, like, if you're doing something for this body or for this emotional state or this mind that's beneficial, it's beneficial. That's just stuff that needs taken care of. So when something is selfish, that is it's by definition going to be harmful, but it's because it's harmful that it's selfish is more accurate to say. So like when you're saying, oh, I just need to do something nice for myself. The real question is this genuinely beneficial? I can tell you that I've done a lot of things for myself that were not beneficial. Let's not unpack that. Anybody who knows my personal history knows that's true. And I can laugh about it now. But yeah, caring for the self. The self is just part of what's here. This body, this heart, this mind. You are born into this present life because of the merit of giving in the past. You are born into this present life because of the merit of giving in the past. How many things had to be given for you to be here right now? I'm going to go fetch all the paper in the entire world and a pen that never runs out, and we can each write forever, and not scratch the surface. Or we could just go, it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot. I mean, wow. So many ancestors of so many types. Biological ancestors, spiritual ancestors, plants that have sustained bodies. So much giving. And, you know, we're going to be the ancestors. So, not to put some pressure on us, but let's be the kind of ancestors people would want to honor. Why not? People can look back and say, thank you. That's the way I want to live. You know, it can get kind of, people can feel discouraged. You know, you read the news and you go, oh my God, what is wrong with us? You know, or maybe you just go to Thanksgiving dinner. You're like, how did we end up with this stuff? Whatever it is. Sometimes you look around at the social sphere and it's gnarly, or it feels bad. It feels like we're trapped. People just doing all this harmful stuff. Yeah, so that can happen, and you know, that's why we have the basis of Buddhism is the First Noble Truth, that there's suffering, it's vast, it's epical, and you can do something about it. So we're just not denying that or papering it over or anything. But on the other hand, I encourage you every day to be like, what the heck had to happen just today for me to make it this far? You know, I think Dr. King has like a really beautiful essay about this where he's like, I had a cup of coffee, and he just talks about all the conditions. He sounds like Thich Nhat Hanh. He's like, well, someone had to grow this in Colombia, and then someone had to ship that milk up from cooperation. Vast networks of cooperation. If people were really we'd all already be dead if we're a bunch of psychopaths. We could all kill each other just tonight. Really? And we don't. It happens all the time. Everyone doesn't kill each other almost all the time. You might think, well, of course. Why, of course? This is giving. Always going on, miraculously. It's a miracle, but it's also a choice. People walk by my garage and go, I guess I'm not going to break into that. Thank you. Every once in a while they do. It's time for a new bike. But there's all those other times. So many. So much cooperation and giving constantly occurring. Even in the most dreadful situations. Most dreadful situations, there's usually enormous amounts of kindness and giving happening. Last sentence in this section on giving is mind is beyond measure. Things given are beyond measure. Moreover, in giving, mind transforms the gift, and the gift transforms the mind. All right, so can you measure your mind? Is there any way of encompassing, grasping your mind? in my mind here, it's like cognizance of this. I think maybe I haven't been able to shut up about this today. I said I wasn't talking, but I was actually talking in one-to-one meetings with people all day. And wow, it's like really big. Like just right now. What can be heard, seen? It's this body, the sensations here, so vast and subtle. Giving is beyond measure because you can't possibly measure the impact of giving, right? You give something to somebody, you might be like, oh, they smiled. But we can't really understand, ever, the ripples that come from that. And I suppose sometimes it seems like our effort is pretty small. The world is big, there's a lot of suffering. What am I even doing here? Just like sitting, looking at this wall, thinking a lot, occasionally being like, oh, I'm breathing. Or whatever it is. It may seem small. And in one sense, everything we do is always small, because the universe is so vast. But gifts are beyond measure. Mind is beyond measure. We cannot measure the impact of the quality of mind, of intention that we bring to a moment, the impact of the gift. So I'm grateful. I like immeasurable appreciation for the gift of your attention during the course of this talk and just your faces. I'm glad you brought your faces with you. They're very beautiful. I'm looking at the faces of the people in the online meeting and it's bringing me a lot of joy and just looking around. So thanks for bringing yourselves here.